Stay home, stay safe.
Both of the twin towers of the World Trade Center have collapsed after coming under terrorist attack. Two plane collisions into the towers triggered explosions and fires in the towers shortly after 9 a.m. Before the first collapse, it isn't yet clear if initial structural damage alone brought the buildings to the ground. All flights in the United States have been cancelled after a national ground stop was declared by the government. The first plane collided into one of the towers shortly before 9 p.m. local time, which was just after businesses offices opened for the day in Manhattan. Less than 18 minutes after the first collision, a second plane, a Boeing 737, hit the other twin tower.
All the people traffic was running up. And I'm looking up, I'm trying to call the station, trying to find where we are. And I look up and the tower just starts crumbling down. And everybody in the street just stops and started crying and bawling. And I'm standing next to a fireman. He said, yeah, they just bombed the Pentagon, too.
A big explosion happened. Some guy came out. His skin was all off. I helped him out. This is him all over. There's people jumping out of windows. I've seen at least 14 people jumping out of windows.
World Financial Center, we heard a big bang. And then we saw smoke coming out, and everybody started running out. And we saw the plane on the other side of the building, and there was smoke everywhere, and people are jumping out the windows. Over there, they're jumping out the windows, I guess because they're trying to save themselves. I don't know.
People on the ground were running from the scene, but it's not yet clear how many remain trapped under the debris of both buildings. Rescue crews on the street say the area resembles a war zone. The first plane in the attack was a Boeing 767, American Airlines passenger jet bound for Los Angeles. It's said to have been hijacked after taking off from Boston's International Logan Airport. U.S. officials say the hijacking and the crash was an act of terrorism, and a Palestinian group has claimed responsibility. The United Nations building on the east side of Manhattan has also been evacuated. Hospitals are said to be overwhelmed with burn victims, and traffic is at a standstill as street gridlock prevails across the city. Katherine Schlatter, TVB News.
Now, half an hour after the second plane hit the Twin Towers, an aircraft crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, causing an explosion and fire. There are reports of at least 7 people being injured there. Jeremy Austin has more.
Flames tore through the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. military. Officials said an airliner appeared to have crashed near a helicopter landing site on one side of the vast building. People said the impact was so powerful it blew them off their feet. As emergency sirens wailed, staff were ordered to run out of the building. The White House, the State Department and the Capitol building were ordered evacuated as well. The Pentagon is the world's largest office complex with some 24,000 people working within its walls. It also employs elaborate security precautions to try to prevent it becoming the target of a terrorist attack. Jeremy Austin, TVB News.
American Airlines has confirmed it has lost 2 planes with 156 people on board. There are reports another of the crashed planes was operated by U.S. Air. A United Airlines flight crashed at around the same time near Pittsburgh. Meantime, U.S. President George W. Bush has now been taken into a secret location. He made these comments in Florida following the first attack on the World Trade Center.
Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country. I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act. Terrorism against our nation will not stand. And now, if you join me in a moment of silence. May God bless the victims, their families, and America. Thank you very much.
There is very mixed information on who might be responsible for the attacks. Reports from the Middle East say a Palestinian group has claimed responsibility. But possible involvement by exiled Saudi dissident Osama bin Laden has not been ruled out. All international flights to the U.S. have been canceled.
An Arab newspaper who has access to Saudi dissident Osama bin Laden said bin Laden warned 3 weeks ago that he and his followers would carry out an unprecedented attack on the U.S. in retaliation for American support of Israel. The ruling Taliban in Afghanistan are calling a news conference in Pakistan. But one television station in Abu Dhabi said a Palestinian group has claimed responsibility, though the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine denied any connection. Meanwhile, Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat has condemned the attack and sent his condolences to U.S. President George W. Bush and the people of the United States. The defense minister of Israel denounced what he described as terrorism by Islamic extremists. He said the aim of such act is to destroy the foundations of democratic society and Westerners. He added that Israel itself is ready for any eventuality. Condolences are also pouring in from around the world. British Prime Minister Tony Blair expressed shock and has summoned his cabinet for an emergency security meeting. From Russia, President Vladimir Putin described it as a terrible tragedy. And in Germany, Chancellor Gerhard Schröder has convened the country's National Security Council, and all plane departures from Germany to the US have been halted for the time being. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
All international flights to the U.S. have been canceled, including those from Hong Kong. Flights which were already en route have been diverted, many of them to Canada. Now, the terrorist attacks have caused chaos on world financial markets. The New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ have been closed for the day, but stocks have been hammered in Europe. In Frankfurt, the DAX index was down over 9% in afternoon trade. The U.S. dollar fell against major currencies, while oil prices surged to over $30 a barrel. As yet, there are no confirmed casualty figures from the attacks. Let's cross back now to live coverage from the Fox network. My mistake, we're seeing live pictures from Reuters. We're about 3 hours after the initial attack. And as you can see, emergency crews are still rushing people to the hospital. I believe these are live shots from the streets of New York City. Yes, I can see the identification on the back of that paramedic.
Do you have any knowledge of any more planes in the air?
We know that hundreds, perhaps thousands, were injured. The exact numbers, obviously at this point,
just an empty
have not been released. These are live pictures, I believe, from the Pentagon, where a plane crashed into that building approximately 9:30 U.S. time, East Coast time. There was smoke. It seems the smoke has cleared. It was a beautiful day in Washington up until that point. And the smoke did cover much of the skies. Now it has dissipated. All major metropolitan areas on alert at this point, not just in New York City, not just in Washington, D.C., but major cities across the country. We see the smoke again coming from the Pentagon. We go live now. Well, these must be tape pictures. Forgive me for not warning you about these pictures. It seems to be either debris or... I apologize for not warning you about those pictures of people falling or jumping out of the building at the time of the fire at the World Trade Center. They had tried to evacuate the buildings. As you can read on the bottom of the screen, not a normal day, not a normal night. We will continue with live pictures from all the affected areas, including live coverage from Fox News.